All right, Eric, are we recording as well? Do you need me to do anything for that?
We are live.
Okay. All right, we're gonna go ahead and get started then. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access channel. The recording of this meeting will be available on the Lunenburg Public Access YouTube channel within 24 hours. The agenda lists all the topics which may be discussed at this meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Public participation is encouraged, and public comments may be welcomed during committee member discussions at the discretion of the chair. And the time is 7:03, and I see that I'm Michael Ray Jeffries. I'm joined tonight, since this is Zoom, by Mr. Gray, Mr. Allison, and Mr. Blatt. And then we also are joined tonight by Chris Ruth, and Chris is our facilities manager. So first, let's see if we have any public comments this evening from the public or any members of the board before we go ahead and get started with our welcome to Mr. Ruth.
Actually, I'd like to correct you. It's 6:03, not 7:03.
Thank you.
No problem. And then also, I'd also just like to mention that 21 Main Street is on the market right now for $375,000. It's got more land than the town hall, and it shares a property line that is encroached, as we know, by our town hall's ADA ramp. Just a note to this group of people that are looking at
purchasing a piece of property.
but the availability too.
I'm just kidding with you.
All right. Are there any other public comments? Okay, let's go ahead and get started with our welcome to Chris. So we're joined tonight by Chris Ruth. Chris is our new facilities director here in town. He's also a new resident here in Lunenburg, so that's always exciting when we have people who work for the town with a vested interest as well. So Chris, if I can just turn to you just for your brief welcome and intro and any comments you want to make so far related to the hybrid plan that you've been shown.
Well, hi everybody. So Michael Ray and I met the other day, and he gave me, a brief overview of the hybrid plan. My initial thoughts before seeing it was, I thought it'd be great to try to rehab TCP without knowing the full history behind it. That being said, I think the hybrid plan is a pretty good approach. My only concerns would be parking at the Ritter, but I think there's, reconfiguring that intersection on the side there, that's all wasted space, would be a good way to potentially get some additional parking. And I just think I'm hoping we can come to an idea on TCP sooner than later, because I'm at the point now where I can't patch the roof anymore. It's in pretty rough shape. But that was my thoughts on the hybrid plan there.
All right, so while we have this discussion, Chris, you are welcome to participate, along with, any member of the public that chooses to call in or join the Zoom. We do try to have this as a relatively open conversation. So on our agenda tonight, and forgive me here while I try to get all my windows in order. On our agenda tonight, we have discussion to break the project into phases. But before we get to that point, I think it makes more sense to start by discussing the ARPA funding commitment. We did submit an ARPA funding request for $225,000. The select board did provide that at a recent select board meeting. So we had talked about some of the immediate spending needs. And Matt, I'm going to kind of turn to you for a moment here, because I know that the initial thought process that we had was to take advantage of your experience with CAD as a way to potentially, save us some money here. So just want to turn to you, Matt, about kind of what your needs are, and if you just want to start the convo there.
Sure. I foolishly raised my hand and said, I have CAD skills when the question came up. And so spotlight. CAD is a great tool. I'm not sure that it's available in town. I know that the DOT provides it. The DOT gets it for free, is my understanding, because they get MicroStation versus Autodesk. There's only two competitors. So I think that there is an allowance for some kind of a cost for the program itself, but and then there's a machine required to use it. But and again, I have CAD skills, but I'm a civil engineer, so my expertise is everything outside the building, which is not inside the building, right? I typically work with architects and get floor plans and whatnot, but I definitely am capable of drawing lines and circles and putting labels on stuff. And for that, I basically could do that on any computer.
All right, so I think as a next step, Chris, we're probably going to need your help on this one. So this request is likely going to need to go through the town manager, but basically we're looking for, I'm guessing that you'd prefer a laptop over a desktop. Is that fair?
I did some looking, and you can get about almost twice the machine for almost half the cost for a desktop versus a laptop, but you do give up a lot of versatility and mobility.
Matt, I think your sound on my end is cutting out a little bit. I'm not sure if anyone else is hearing that as well. Is it just me that's having Matt's sound cut out?
No, we got a microwave. He basically was talking about the fact that a desktop will give you twice the power for less money.
Okay. So I think as the next step there, Chris, while I was coming to you, is we might need your help as far as actually identifying the product and procuring it. So, you know, the idea here, as Matt said, is, you know, Matt's a civil engineer by trade, but we're looking, because of the amount of work that we've already had done, where we've already hired an architect to kind of come up with our space needs. We have several schematic designs, and at this point, we're trying to figure out what, you know, really Ritter would look like, this new town hall, and we're trying to see how much money we can not spend to kind of come up with some form of a schematic. Is this something that you could assist with over the course of the next week or so?
I'm happy to talk to the town manager. I'm just curious. Oh, sorry, the kid's throwing a dog bowl around.
That's all right.
If we're looking to start with just floor plans, it may be more economical to take what we have now and do Bluebeam markups as opposed to, you know, starting with CAD. You know, it gives you the ability to scale and draw over existing plans. And I have a Bluebeam license for myself at work, so.
You said you have a CAD license yourself at work?
It's a Bluebeam, so it's you know, Adobe PDF, but it gives
Yep.
you the ability to mark up, scale, do area, that type of thing. So, you know, we're talking a $300 a year license versus several thousand for CAD. So it's just a thought.
Yeah, no, I think for sure we're going to need to get a computer for Matt and get CAD. I think the intent here is that we need to, you know, the design work that we have done is mostly focused on TC Passios. And as we start to switch gears, we're talking about the Ritter building, we're talking about Town Hall and the new Town Hall building, Ritter Annex. So those aren't going to be markups of existing, they're going to be creating new.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to talk to the town manager and IT and see what we can come up with.
All right. And Matt, you guys can exchange information. That way you guys are communicating and we can try to get this as soon as possible.
Yeah, actually, I wanted to ask about the hose bib on the Ritter for the farmer's market. It's not been on.
So there's one on the corner of the building, Matt, that is been off and we can't find the shut off. And then there's another one on the other side that we actually turned off on our own because the neighbors were borrowing water, for lack of a better word.
That's the one. Okay, thank you. But I just wanted to mention that to say that I have your contact info, so I will be in touch with you.
Okay, perfect.
All right. And I appreciate your help on that, Chris. All right, the other part of the ARPA request as well is identifying kind of what kind of architectural support we're going to need. But I think as a first step, if we can get that computer kind of get a better understanding of any kind of limitations we have, I think we'll be in a better position in probably 3 weeks from now. And we'll continue to work on that RFP language. And Matt, I think that something that may be well is if you and I take some time and hang out for a bit and kind of draft up some of this based on previous experience. If that's okay with the majority of the board, for Matt and I to kind of work on that and come back to the board at our next meeting, committee at our next meeting.
Sure. Mr. Chair, please remember the TAP A report that kind of had a sketch already of the annex for Ritter. I mean, annex for, the library. Ritter,
Yep.
sorry. So I don't know how much that would help just start as a starting point. And I think that actually had more square footage than we would need because it had the schools in there too.
Yeah, that'll be a good start. Are we in agreement for Matt and I to work on the RFP language over the next couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think the rest of us took a step back when you were mentioning volunteers there. The two of you volunteered.
All right. So let me get to the next part. So the next part of our agenda tonight is to breaking the project into phases. So I do have a sheet to share, and we were working on this previously. So let me just go ahead and share this screen. Right, and let me know if you can see this okay. All right, can we all see this one screen okay?
Yes.
All right, good. So we had talked about breaking this into phases, and kind of where we were at in preliminary conversation was we were kind of looking at, 1A, 1B. So this is where it would be good to kind of pick up the conversation today. So I just want to walk through what this plan overall is. TC Passios being a transition space, then community center, demolishing north central part of West Wings, creating small office and town clerk storage, maintaining space for a food pantry, renovating the kitchen gym, and then also having space for PAC studio, and then some form of public bathrooms. And then we had town hall, using that as a meeting house. So first floor would have 3 meeting rooms, second floor would have the primary meeting room. There would be the removal of what is now the town manager and HR offices, just to help increase the size of that second floor meeting room. And then for Ritter building, this would be the new town hall, that the Ritter itself would function as kind of Ritter second floor and basement for school admin and for ACE. So what's existing older Ritter is school, and then there would be a proposed annex on the building as well. Brooks House, I think it's still up in the air, but demolish or sell. And then 30 School Street, green space or parking. And then considerations or cost implications that we know of is there's a high right now estimated price per square foot, including hard and soft cost. This is a best guess, which is about $545 a square foot. And we had tried to minimize kind of new construction or what spaces were being significantly renovated. So one of the things that's come up in this plan, and speaking with Chris about this, is there's a need to put a new roof on TC Passios sooner than later. And part of our vision here as we look at the plan was that TC Passios would likely be kind of one of the third thing that gets renovated. So if we can talk through this, what I would imagine then for a good phase 1 is that phase 1's likely in 3 parts, but 1 phase. And that first part would likely need to be a new roof over a portion of the TC Passios building. And that would be the front portion that's currently being utilized to help minimize potential for any continued leaks in that area. And then we also identified Ritter building, rehabilitation of the Ritter building, and then the building of the new town hall. and that would kind of round out phase one.
Didn't we think that TCP would be a place that we'd have to put people while we were renovating either Town Hall or Ritter? And
Yeah.
if so, would they be in the wings that we plan to tear down eventually? And if so, would that be an acceptable place to put them, in the next couple of years? Is it going to be acceptable if we don't fix the roof over those, or at least repair them or do something?
Yeah, Tom, I mentioned that I think that the first thing we're going to need to do is likely put a roof over a portion of the TC Passios in order to support that transition space. Chris, do you want to jump in here with any thoughts and feedback? I think our thought process was kind of the first portion of the building where the gym is, that first left wing. You mentioned there's about 40 active leaks right now. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so unfortunately, the areas we're talking about tearing down are some of the worst leaks. So, the central area right now, PAC is, and the superintendent's office, that area, we've done everything we can to trace down leaks, bringing water up there and tracking it down. That section needs something pretty bad. The section we're talking about saving could, in theory, wait a little while. It's got, a few drips here and there, but it's not as bad. The wing in the back that sounds like we're going to tear it down at the moment is just storage. We could consolidate some of that and probably hold off on that section of roof. But it's, it's beyond fixing. And every time we go up there, I feel like, just walking on it's making it worse.
So what you're saying then, Chris, is the higher priority is the central portion of the building.
At the moment, yes, we can't seem to track the leak down. We fixed 30 or so in the last month. Part of my thought process to save some money would be, it's about $45 a square foot to do the metal roofing. But the metal roofing, we could just take TPO and go right up over those slopes and, save some money there. Especially if the building's, going to be torn down at some point in that portion. The gym's not leaking at all. There's a small leak in the cafeteria, a few small leaks in the extended day area, but other than that, it's okay. I mean, depends on how far you want to go down the list of what's wrong with that building right now.
All right, so I'm making a note of new roof liner over central portion of roof. And this is to facilitate now, Chris, if we think about a project that's going to take a couple of years or, a year of us needing to use kind of that front left wing of the school, really maximizing what now is, what's the space is now. Do you envision that if staff offices are in that west wing, that we're going to need to put a new liner on that roof in order to facilitate them working?
At the moment, it could probably last, but winter's coming up and you guys know how much damage the winter can do to that. So come spring, the answer may change pretty quickly. There's some minor leaks over there. We've got it under control. They have some electrical issues over there right now, but I think that's more related to too many window air conditioners plugged into circuits with other things. There's a couple of issues over there. I mean, currently the building doesn't even have hot water. So we've got it repaired to the point where it's lukewarm, but even that needs some more work. So I think to even use it as a transition space, we have to look at some serious costs.
And what would some of those costs be related to the hot water? Are you talking new boiler system as needed now?
So the boilers are in good shape. One of the circulator pumps wasn't working at all, so we got that repaired for fairly cheap money. The mixing valve is frozen, so that needs about $4,000 worth of work. They did tell me that they got some hot water in the winter, which means there's some sort of crossover with the heating system. But luckily the boilers are in pretty good shape and have 2 of the 3 have been serviced regularly. And the third one, which could probably be rehabbed if it was needed, hasn't been serviced since the old high school was torn down because TCP used to feed all the water to that building.
All right. I want to give other members the opportunity to jump in here and if any comments or questions, because I do have an ask coming up, but any comments or questions?
I have a comment.
So, Mr. Chair, just a quick question. When we look at this, is this like, you know, the amount of, what about the space that's being used now? Is there a, are we okay there when it comes to the roof and things like that? You know, being used by the school side or whatever else is in there today? Is there a section, in other words, can people be crammed for a little while? And we can utilize things like, you know, maybe even utilizing the gym or something like that. I mean, this is kind of a, you know, the last thing I'm looking at is putting lipstick on a pig type of situation and throwing, you know, good money over bad.
Yeah, I think an aspect of this, Dave, is going to need to be a little bit of good money after bad, and in the sense of, you know, continued water infiltration is going to deteriorate the building beyond repair, right? And so even though we may still be a ways away from that final plan, I think we got to stop the water. But I agree with you, and I think that, you know, what we need to do is really take a hard look at the current usage of TC Passios and figure out how we can cram in, you know, people over a short period of time to make it work.
Right, because to me, it looks like, to me, it would be, you know, if we're looking at the Ritter being the top priority, it's just the folks in the Ritter. So we're talking what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, like about what, less than 10 office spaces, 10 office spaces. Yeah.
Chris, do you know roughly how many people work in Ritter? 3, 4, 5.
On the first or the lower level, you have me and the veterans agent. She's only there a couple of days a week. On the middle level, I guess you'd have Adam and Annie are there, and then on the top floor, you've got 2 for conservation, sometimes 2 for Board of Health, 2 for building commission, and my rec director is there 3 days a week.
All right, so I think I just counted 8 or 9. Okay. So Dave, I think that, you know, if we can work with Chris and kind of look at some of the space that's currently being utilized and figure out what we have left over. And I'm in agreement with you. We need to kind of make it work in some gym space, some cafeteria space, some, you know, leftover classrooms. I think that that's the, while not ideal, I think that that's what we probably need to do.
Yeah, and so I would look at it also as we talked about further on, you know, being able to, if I was going to save a roof, making sure I patched above the cafeteria and kitchen, because I would look at that as, you know, a possibility for a community kitchen later on, if something with Passios. You know, I know we've talked about it, but, you know, that would be a great spot to be able to keep that somehow.
Do you think, Chris, as the next step for us, that you'd be able to, and you know, I want to be careful that we don't assign you work, but it would be helpful if you can identify for us kind of what portions of the roof need to get replaced prior to 3 years from now. You know, what the immediate needs are, because if the intent is for us to use that as a transition space for Ritter building, and you know, we are going to need to put about 9 people in there, and I know it's pretty full.
Yeah, I already have kind of a sketch marked up because I was working on some budget numbers for the roof. The gym is also used quite a bit right now between the extended day, teen center, our rec programs, as well as, you know, outside interests that rent the space. So I just figured I'd mention that. And there's also going to be a need for some IT upgrades if we're putting people in there. The Wi-Fi is quite spotty at the moment in that building. So for anyone to efficiently work in there, we'll at least have to look at that. I know that one's minor, but I also do have a current markup of what's being used in there that I can send over.
Yes, I mean, I know I know Brian can help me here, but I think when we walked through it or looked at what it was, I think, a lot of it was people were using space just because they had it. So say there was like 1,000 square foot classroom, might have been 2 people in the whole classroom.
Yeah.
From the last I looked there. And I mean, I don't see why 1,000 square foot classroom couldn't hold 4 to 5 people in it, as far as smaller offices or cubicles,
Yeah.
at
All
least
right.
temporary, Anyway, sorry, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I
Three.
appreciate your 2 cents, David. So if we keep thinking about what else is part of phase one, it's preparing the TC Passios to function as a transition space. I think the other part of phase one is the Ritter building renovation. The construction of the new town hall or new town hall offices. Let me add Brian. So in this way, this would allow us then to end phase one with Ritter renovated new town hall offices ready to go. That would then provide in one fell swoop, not really one swoop, but this would give us a consolidation of school offices, of town offices, of Ritter offices into one location. And this would be the new kind of office complex. That then takes away from ongoing needs at TC Passios, because currently the superintendent is occupying, several offices in there. Those programs are occupying some space. And so, Chris, as you think about, that layout for sections of roof, I think one thing to consider is also the knowing that, certain sections are going to be vacated pretty quickly, that those are probably not the sections of roof we want to spend too much money on if we can avoid it. So, and again, I'm just building off of where we left off. Does anyone want to stop me here and say that this is not the way we want to keep going here, or if there's another path? Because I think that's where we had landed previously.
The one question I had is the current town hall, the space that's, if in a pinch, this is a short period of time, could you use some of the area on the second floor for office space? It's the area that's currently has the chairs for the meeting room.
Yeah, it currently is being used as office space.
No, yeah, even where the chairs are and all that.
Yeah, so on the second floor of town hall, when you come in there during the weekdays, the floor level where you have kind of that table off to the side, that's kind of near the wall closest to the Hadwin Market, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, that table is used as an office space.
Oh,
during
okay.
weekdays. Yeah.
Okay.
And then the staff break room is up off the stage. So the town hall side area, it is currently an office space. And then we also have the IT office that's on the second floor of town hall on the other side of this, on the left side of the stage, as we said. All right, I think the next part of this was phase two would then be the renovation of town hall. And then 30 School Street has to squeeze in here somewhere too. So is that part of the renovation of the Ritter? Is adding the additional parking near 30 School Street?
I think that's a no-brainer.
I would think you'd have to do that in order to, when you open up the building, you need the parking, so.
I would also
think-
add that I feel like most of the time parking lots are probably built after the building's completed.
Well, just after, but it would be the last thing you do.
Yeah. Then as we go into phase 3 is the renovation of the TC patios. You know, I think that it's worth mentioning. It's worth mentioning that the schools are doing the school committee is doing an assessment on Turkey Hill. And I think based on everyone's walkthroughs, you know, Turkey Hill is in a much better condition of a building than everything else. And without getting too far off base here, I think it, you know, I think it may be logical that by the time we get to phase 3, that the conversation may need to shift a bit in sense of, you know, would Turkey Hill be, is it a better plan during the renovation or the building of a new school to rehabilitate Turkey Hill instead of TC Patios? And I just want to pause there for any thoughts on that.
Is there a commercial kitchen in the Turkey Hill? I don't think there is.
There's a commercial kitchen that has newer equipment.
Okay.
Yeah, so before John left us as the facilities guys for the school, he had done a lot of work on Turkey Hill. So it has new variable speed motors in it for the heat system. He sealed up the envelope quite a bit. Newer appliances in the kitchen and things of that sort. So, you know, there was money spent using green funds to kind of upgrade things there.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely some work that needs to be done. If you look at the school committee's capital planning, 5-year, 10-year lookout, I think it shows a lot of that stuff that needs to get done. I think the concern is a lot of that stuff, if it was to get done while the students are there, it wouldn't get done because it wouldn't be able to get done over the summer. So then the school committee's been talking about, okay, then we got to get, you know, temporary classrooms to find a space for all those students if those renovations were going to be done while students were actually active in school. So that's one of the big concerns, and I think that's what leans some of the committee members on the school committee to build new, because the concern is, okay, where do we put these students during the school year while these major renovations are taking place?
Brian, is the school committee saying that they don't want to replace it, they want to rehab it?
There hasn't been
Is
a
that-
vote on that, but I
But
think
is that the consensus, do you
there's
think?
definitely some people leaning that direction, but I
Right.
think it's,
The question is
That's no
how
vote.
to do it.
well, that's the
Because
challenge.
obvious-
I think it's possible that we could stay in the building, but it's that challenge of, okay, where are we going to put the students? Are we getting temporary classrooms? Things like that. So that's definitely concerning. And again, it wasn't really meant for that grade level too. So it's a challenge. But I think the school committee will work with whatever they get, kind of thing. At the same time, it is challenging.
I know there was some discussion at school committee about, I think Peter Beardmore had mentioned that something about talking about getting involved in hiring some people to do some planning on what it would cost. Because obviously,
Connected
ahead.
to the ADA compliance, that was one of the things that we could try to use this project, the TCP or the building design committee, to try to add that as part of the engineering costs of, like, okay, let's engineer that, what the ADA compliance would be for that building, because it is a town building. So maybe that could get thrown into the $250,000
right,
planning purposes, engineering, design.
So it's any other comments?
I'd be remiss at this point not to mention that back when we made the Village Center District bylaw, that the rough area where the TC Patios is and the Brooks House was included in that zoning area. Considerable reductions in setbacks and allowances for mixed use. And I personally, I think it's time we get off the fence about the TC Patios. Is it a school building? Is it a municipal building? In a school building, then we don't have to worry about it. But if it's going to become a municipal building, then there should be a property line established. It's TC Passios from the main school campus. Just for design purposes, so that we have an envelope that's workable. You know, it doesn't make sense that we've had it for this long and that property line hasn't been established.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the property line just because I feel like it's town property. It's gonna, whether it's town buildings or town schools, it is still town property. But I do agree, we should make a decision on TCP, and I think the concern is too, like, we don't want extra, the age of the building too. We don't want to get us into a situation where we want to tear it down a year later and we can't tear it down. So I think we need to make a decision on that. And also I think we should make a decision on whether we want Turkey Hill as that municipal building too, or do we want the TCP building? And I think the committee seems to think that the Turkey Hill is in a much better position than TCP. Just with the size and what it has to offer.
Well, in that regard, I guess I kind of wish the Vertex study had gone over the Turkey Hill, because it went over these other 5 pretty concisely in 2018. And it doesn't really seem like the primary was in that bad a shape. They said it was only going to be $2.9 million to get it back up to good condition. And they said the roof was only $681,214 to replace the roof in 2018.
You know, I know that we got into all of this in the last 4 years by starting the conversation about TC Passios and how we can rehabilitate TC Passios to provide this kind of mixed use status. And, you know, I think as we've, just to consolidate kind of some conversations we've been having over the last couple of years, I think that we've heard concerns from some parents about the location of TC Passios in terms of its proximity to the schools. And, you know, concern about members of the public being there, that's in the heart of what some people refer to as a school campus. That on one side you have the Boys and Girls Club, in front of it you have the library, on the side and back of it you have, you know, two schools. I think, you know, we've also come up with a cost estimate that I think everyone recognizes is a bit prohibitive in order for us to be able to move forward with consolidating there. So I know that, you know, just recapping kind of how we've landed where we're at. For me, if the conversation is between, you know, phase 3 of TC Passios or phase 3 of Turkey Hill, you know, I would love to have the conversation with the school committee about long-term plans for Turkey Hill. Because, you know, with what I see as advantages to Turkey Hill over TC Passios is that Turkey Hill is the corner of that lot. There's a separate way to come in, there's a separate way to get out that's unrelated to all the schools. You know, I think that there's better separation generally. You know, it gives the ability, you know, although I think TC Passios would be a poor location for a new school because of traffic, that, you know, offsetting school times, you know, it could be a pretty good lot for a future school. So there's definitely pros and cons. And I also believe that Turkey Hill is just in a better position to be able to rehabilitate for town related purposes. You know, giving, you know, with the size of the building, it to me seems logical, and everyone has their own logic, but it seems easy to me for the second floor to become, you know, expansion of the Boys and Girls Club. You know, there's a lot of room up there. There's a lot of space. There's bathrooms. It's kind of designed for that age group. You know, the first floor could easily be, you know, used for all the purposes that are currently happening in Turkey and TC Passios, such as the, you know, the after school, before school program, the food pantry. You know, it's for the most part an ADA accessible building. It's one floor. So to me, it's a better building. I think we can more easily move into it than we probably could TC Passios. But, you know, those are kind of my thoughts.
So are you saying that phase 1 is we rebuild Ritter and make a town hall there, and then possibly phase 3 would be Turkey Hill becomes town hall?
No. I think what I'm suggesting is that we had planned this community center to be at the TC Passios with a much smaller footprint. And what I'm suggesting is that that footprint would fit into Turkey Hill as well as TC Passios.
So then that leaves TC Passios up for grabs because we consider Turkey Hill.
I'm sorry, Matt, I can't hear you. Say that again.
Sorry.
So that leaves TC Passios up in the air because we're considering Turkey Hill. Is that?
I think it would leave TCP to get torn down. That would be my thought. Before the deadline crosses that you can't tear it down anymore.
There is no such deadline. You just have to go to APDC for his.
I guess we all have to become members of ACPTC and then vote for it, right? So, Ms. Chair, I do feel like phase 3 is a difficult one right now. And it would be more based on what the school committee comes back and says, because I'm looking at phase 1 and phase 2. We are far down the line to get those two things done. That's not going to happen. I would say that's, that phase 1 and phase 2 would end up being at least, I'd hesitate to say 5 years out by that time, but at least 3 years out.
Yeah.
Let me make a suggestion here at this point too, is phase 1 would basically fulfill the entire charge of this committee right now. We could just say phase 1, our committee charge is done. Right?
Our committee charge would be done at the end of phase 3 because it was expanded to include town hall and Ritter building. So I think the majority of it would be done at the end of phase 2, but we still wouldn't resolve the community needs that exist. But I do believe that, sometimes I think, we can't let perfect be the enemy of progress. And and I think that if we can go down this path and we get phase 1 and phase 2 done, and we have the conversation about phase 3 with the school committee, no slap against all the people who served before, but I think I've said several times, we don't have a problem with what to do with old buildings. We have a problem with what to do with old schools. And so I think that, we can kind of resolve a lot of this in phase 1 and phase 2. But I think if we tie phase 3 into Turkey Hill, knowing that Turkey Hill may be a better building and just, coordinate those efforts with the school committee, for sure, if their thought process is that a school needs to be built and they come up with a good rationale that's undeniable for why Turkey Hill will not work as a school for another 50, 60 years. And if there's funding available for the Turkey Hill to get rebuilt somewhere, to me, I think we need to have that conversation about, demolishing TC Passios, how to build this new school and transition Turkey Hill into a future municipal space.
I know I would speak that the school committee is definitely interested in having a meeting, whether it's a dual meeting with this committee as well. And I think they're also waiting on this committee too. Like Carol's always saying, oh, let's see what the building design committee does. And I think that's part of it too. They want to know, does the building design committee want to use Turkey Hill? Because that makes a big difference.
So Brian, to that comment, what if we just left phase 3 as create community center?
But that wouldn't give much
Whether it's
information.
Passios, Turkey Hill or whatever, it's just creating a community center.
That wouldn't give much information to whoever we hire to give us, to do anything, because it wouldn't be clear. I think we one of the things I think about this is at the rate the town is growing, whether or not if they renovate Turkey Hill or tear it down and rebuild it as a new Turkey Hill, TCP eventually is going to be a school, because unless we decide to, because we're going to need another school in 10 years or so, because that's how the history of this town has went. we keep on, as we grow more and more people, we get more and more students. All of a sudden, the high school is not going to be big enough to have the high school and the middle school. So we're going to be moving kids around and we're going to need another school. So to me, TCP would, if the desire is to keep it all in that one little campus, TCP will be knocked down at some point to build a new school. You know,
Or-
I don't know if that's 10 years, 15 years, whatever, but the town is growing and we'll need, and if we get more kids, we're going to need more school space.
I think it's also, Tom, I just want to jump in there. I think it's also possible that, you know, and I don't want to put myself in the shoes of the school committee, but it is possible that TC Passios could be another playing field, another parking lot, and, you know, another site could be a location for a school. I mean, we do have land elsewhere in town.
I will say that
I
the school
agree.
committee has said that they did not care for any specific location of a new building. There was no like strong desire by the committee to say we need this space.
There's been at least discussion, or I've heard people talk, and I heard at various times that they like the idea of a campus. So, I mean, yeah, we have space, we could put it somewhere else. You know, we could actually, you know, take the football field and make that into a school or something. I don't know, but there's, to me, there's the question of ultimately for me, the biggest issue is whatever we do in the next 5, 6, 7 years, we need to be able to do it. We're gonna have to borrow money. Are we gonna meet our the limits that we have? And so we have to have some idea of what the school department is going to do, because that's part of the borrowing percentages and all that. So we can't just go out and say we're going to do all this stuff to our buildings, the municipal buildings, without thinking about what the cost is going to be for the schools, because that, you know, we might not have enough borrowing capacity to do all that.
Does it? So I'm
Hey,
gonna
Mike.
ask,
Sorry to interrupt. I just, I have to put the kiddo to bed, so I gotta jump off. I apologize that I have to leave early, but thank you guys for having me. And if you need anything else, just shoot me an email.
all right, thank you, Chris. We appreciate it.
Nice to meet you, Chris.
Thanks, guys.
So is it fair at this point to assume that we're all in, I'm gonna ask a question about phase 3. Was it fair to assume that we're in agreement on kind of how phase 1, phase 2 are kind of laid out here? Or do we want to make some changes, modifications?
Okay with phase 1, phase 2.
I am too.
I am.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Brian said he is too, Matt.
So I'd just like to mention that the layout of section of roof that requires immediate replacement, you might want to think about, we've scheduled a portion of that building for demolition. And the comment was made at the last meeting that if we don't demolish it right away, that gives us a much greater window to not meet those thresholds. And I'm pretty sure it was Greg that mentioned it.
Yep.
That the design people that we hired before said that all the stuff we wanted to do was going to make it $1 million more or whatever, many millions. I think it makes sense, but we don't have to replace the roof on the piece that we're going to demolish. If we're going to do roof repairs and it makes sense for mobility and cost conscious of time value of money, it makes sense if we're going to keep that building to replace the roof on everything that we're going to keep. The other thing about that is I've been looking at the TAPE report. That's a steel structure with CMU walls. So there's really no load bearing members in any of that spot. And then the steel structure allows you to put what you want for a roof on it. But I just wanted to mention that if we're gonna, and I thought that we were solid on keeping TC Passios. So my recommendation before this meeting was going to be that we replace the roof on all the portions of the building that we intend to keep. But now that we're talking about maybe we don't want to keep it, my ideas are changing on that idea. But at the same time, if it's going to be repair the stuff that we're going to keep. If it's going to be replacement, then that's a different situation.
Yeah, after hearing from Chris, I think maybe we change the word replacement to repairs and we don't have the word replacement for the roof there. Still just repairs.
So he mentioned that he's
Cover
been
up.
patching quite a bit of it. I think he's been mentioning that he's been patching quite a bit. You know, I would envision that, you know, we would need to use that as a transition space for, you know, a couple of years, at least 2. And then, you know, if there's conversation about Turkey Hill, and if that is a, you know, build somewhere else, you know, and not at this location, I would envision that there's going to be some use of some of this building as also transition space. I don't know though, but it seems as if what may be a good next step for us here is to have a conversation with the school committee, to start talking about you know, what this phase 3 looks like for us, and kind of where you guys are at, Brian, in conversations about future use of Turkey Hill. So that way, if there's an opportunity to consolidate and save the taxpayers some money here, that we're kind of thinking of these larger projects together in a way that works better together. Does that sound fair, Brian?
That sounds like a great idea.
Is the rest of the committee in agreement to try to coordinate that meeting with the school on that, for that purpose?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. So Brian, I'll be in touch with Carol and with Dr. Burnham to try to get that scheduled at an upcoming meeting that we have.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here. Okay. So I think that we're moving along here. The next thing is I put a hold. I proposed an article for us for the special town meeting. I wanted to confirm it with everyone here. The idea would be to give an update, to do an update article that just informs the public on where we're at in the process. Does the committee believe that by November we'll be at that point to give a substantial update on where we're at?
I'm sorry, what was it? When would that be, Michael Ray?
This would be the special town meeting, November 14th. And doing an update article, no voting other than to receive an update.
I personally believe it'd be beneficial just to listen to feedback too at that point too, to make sure we're okay.
Yep. All right.
I agree.
Okay, Tom.
I agree.
Brian, you're in agreement?
Yes.
Okay, I'll make sure I finalize that wording, but I did preemptively submit it knowing that we had the deadline this afternoon. And I, you know, advised the town manager I would pull it if we weren't all in agreement. I do need a vote on that though. So so I'll make the motion. I move to propose at special town meeting a warrant article, provide the public with an update.
Second,
All right, it's a roll call vote. Mr. Gray,
Aye.
Mr. Leighton,
Aye.
Mr. Blatt,
aye.
Mr. Allison,
Aye.
and an aye for myself. Okay. All right, that's all basically that we had on our agenda tonight. So we'll coordinate. I think we made some good progress there. So Matt, you and I will touch base, and you know, I think you and I are going to be hanging out a little bit. So we'll need to set aside some time to do that, and then try to get that language finalized or you know, drafted at least. And then working with Chris on those computer specs, so that way we can make some progress there. I don't think we have any minutes to approve today. And let's see. All right, our next meeting, I'm just going to pull up the calendar. I know some people have to run here at 7, so we're doing good. Our next meeting will occur, we said 1st and 3rd. That would put us on October the 2nd. Anyone have any known conflicts on October the 2nd?
Yeah, I won't be able to make it. That's Tom.
Okay. Okay. All right, we will plan to meet on October the 2nd. Any final comments tonight? All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Second.
All right. I heard Matt say so moved.